Welcome to the wonderful world of civil rights. Today we'll be viewing the struggles of many marginalized groups to receive their basic human rights, the struggles that led up to it, and the aftermath of these struggles. But first, we have to go back in time! Throughout the 1800s, the American slave trade persisted with a brutal cruelty. Many died and were tortured, but just as many supported it as opposed it. There were, a lot of abolitionists. A lot of people who basically said, you know what? Let's not be the literal reincarnation of evil. If I read them off, I'd probably need to take a break in a minute. There's, a lot of people who were against this, surprisingly, As the Civil War began, many African Americans saw this as their chance to fight for the very freedom they had been denied. Thanks, Denzel! With the end of the war, many amendments were passed to guarantee blacks the rights they had been denied, such as abolishment of slavery, citizenship, and voting rights. But with the end of Reconstruction came a long period of hate and violence directed towards African Americans. Let's fast forward again to New York in the 1920s. New York in the 1920s was a place full of opportunity, and that was especially for African Americans. Arriving in the thousands after World War I, many black men and women settled in Harlem, where they began practicing the arts, such as Langston Hughes with his poetry, and Louis Armstrong with his introduction to jazz to mainstream pop culture. At this time, many African Americans, such as Booker T. Washington and W.E. Du Bois, began their quest for freedom. Fast forwarding again, this time to the early 1950s. 1955, a 14-year-old boy, Emmett Till, is brutally beaten to death for reportedly flirting with a white woman. The two murderers were tried and were exonerated. But with this case, the Till family decided to go public with it, with photos and interviews, and cause international outcry. In 1954, the Supreme Court case of Brown v. Board of Education resulted in the segregation of schools declared unconstitutional. Many mark this as the starting point for the civil rights movement. With the Supreme Court decision, the first group of African American children going to a previously white school emerged, the Little Rock Nine as they were called, and at first they were literally blocked from entering the school by Arkansas Governor Orval Fabuous. But then they were escorted in by the National Guard as per order of Dwight D. Eisenhower. In 1955, a woman by the name of Rosa Parks was arrested for not giving up her seat for a white man on the front of the bus. Thus began a very long boycott of the Montgomery bus system by African Americans, where they mainly walked to wherever they needed to go. This boycott was organized by Martin Luther King Jr. The boycott grabbed the attention of President John F. Kennedy, and in response he proposed a civil rights bill. Human Use Q-Tip Bull Connor presided over Birmingham, Alabama, one of the most segregated parts of the South, in which Martin Luther King Jr. led peaceful sit-ins and marches to protest discrimination happening there. They were faced with rampant violence from the city's authorities. Upon the assassination of President Kennedy, many hopes were dashed due to the lost prospect of his civil rights bill. Early 1965, Martin Luther King and the SCLC led marches from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama for voting rights. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. organized a march to Washington for jobs, in which millions attended. This is where his historic I Have a Dream speech took place.
Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
In response to the civil rights attention, President Lyndon Baines Johnson passed civil rights legislation to guarantee voting rights.
Wrong. Deadly wrong.
By the late 1960s, NAACP and many organizations such as it fragmented and abandoned their nonviolent actions, such as the Black Panther movement, led by Huey Newton.
Revolutions always, in some ways, contradict some laws. That's why it's called revolution.
And individuals such as Stokely Carmichael
and lovable black man like Dr. Martin Luther King, who would not even hurt a fly.
Angela Davis,
to have people who are physically able to wage revolution, who are physically able
and Malcolm X.
To such extent that you bleach to get like the white man.
By the early 70s, the civil rights movement had come to a stall, but it influenced many other movements following it, such as the women's rights movement, organized by Betty Friedan.
Sea of hostility that has been, preventing love in this.
The Chicano movement, led by individuals such as Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta.
Organizing and of the actions that we take, then other people will come forward to help us.
The gay liberation movement, in which patrons of the Stonewall Inn, a popular gay bar, rioted against police raids, led by Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. the Asian American Civil Rights Revolution, led by individuals such as Yuri Kochiyama, and the Native American Civil Rights Movement. After these many movements, everyone received the equal treatment they rightfully deserved. No, not at all. Many individuals in America still suffer discrimination, whether it be race-based, gender-based, LGBTQ-based, or religiously based.
You can see it from the video there. Someone sort of did a hands down thing to her.
There are still many proponents of such discrimination, and we must do all that we can to prevent this.
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So
they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
So gross.